And a perfect segue after Nico's introductory speech. Do you all remember the day that Steve Jobs died? How people went in front of Apple stores around the world and created impromptu memorials to him, lighting candles. Let's see. There's always a way. Lighting candles, making memorials, crying over in the front of his stores. I thought, what could engender such a response? Who was this man, really? The Steve Jobs that I had heard about growing up was a terrible man. And I thought, all these people that are crying in front of his Apple stores, they don't know the full story. Well, when I decided to start looking at leadership styles and was given this assignment, I decided I better get my facts straight, so I better read the book about his biography. And this biography by Steve Jobs is a wonderful book because it shows the good, the bad, and it contains the ugly as well. Like Nico said, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to every story. Steve's story was very interesting. And I remember growing up, I'm only a year younger than Steve. So I remember coming of age at about the same time as he did. The Apple II came out when I was a junior in college. The Lisa, who remembers the Lisa? When I had my very first engineering job, that came out, and an engineer down the hall actually bought one for $10,000. Couldn't believe it. The Macintosh came out in 1984, and at that time I was a first-year graduate student at Stanford, getting my doctorate. Anyway, Apple Computer donated hundreds to the university, and they sold them at almost cut-rate, dirt-cheap prices to any student. I still have my Macintosh 128K. It's still in the box. It still works. I have my original software. I have not kept any other computer, but I have an emotional attachment to that machine. What engenders that kind of a response? Yes, Steve Jobs was the man who brought that Macintosh to the world. It had a lot of marvelous features. It had a mouse. Now, he didn't invent it. It was invented at Palo Alto Research Center of Xerox. But he brought that mouse into a useful existence on the Macintosh. The first graphical user interface, the operating system, the Mac operating system. All of these innovations, all neatly packaged together in a seamlessly integrated, nice aesthetic hardware and software package that was easy for everyone to use. It brought the computer into the realm of the home and for everybody. But Steve didn't invent any of that. He didn't do anything great technologically. He pretty much went around, found all the best things to use, and put it together in a package. And he drove his engineers to make it all work together seamlessly. But the stories of how he did that were legendary. He did things that you wouldn't conceive of. I mean, he would fire people at the drop of a hat. If you walked into his office and said something couldn't be done, that it was technologically impossible, he lived in a different reality than you did. People close to him called it his reality distortion field. And he would say, Paul, you get that done, and you not only get it done now, you get it done, in a certain amount of time. Or it's my way or the highway. It was always him, Steve Jobs, having complete control and insisting on complete control of every aspect of a new product, from its design, from its aesthetic features, how it looked, how it felt, how it operated, everything, manufacturing, and even how it was sold and marketed. He had to control everything. He was an obsessive, compulsive control freak that had to just control everything, a micromanager to the max. And he drove his engineers nuts. Eventually, his juvenile ways, because he had a number of other just horrible parts to his personality that people didn't tend to know about. He had a girlfriend, he got her pregnant. Yes, he bought her a house, but then he ignored her and his daughter for the next 10 years. He lived on the margins of the law. He dropped acid. He drove at breakneck speeds through town. He even parked in handicapped parking spots. Horrible. But he did go through a number of terrible downtimes. He spent time at Next Computer and then at Pixar. Finally, at Pixar, he ended up with some success when he partnered with Disney to create the movie Toy Story. It was Buzz Lightyear and Woody to the rescue. To infinity and beyond, and that kind of characterizes the rest of his life. Old Steve was a leader to be emulated, whereas young Steve was a leader not to be emulated. Old Steve, the first thing he did when he came back to Apple in 1997 was to kill the Macintosh clone. And I thought, oh, that's going to be the end of Apple. I stopped buying Apple products for my laboratory at ASU at that time. Anyway, what I learned from the book was that that was actually Steve's way of focusing the company on what Apple did best, which was making digital devices that worked well and had soul. He brought a number of products to the market through that refocusing of the company, including products like the iMac, the iPod. He created iTunes. iTunes revolutionized the way people around the world listen to music. He created a digital universe, a personal space for which every person could revolve all of their lives, schedule things, and use digital devices as the center of their focus. He did all this because he learned to become a manager. And I feel that he learned to become a manager by failure. Failure tempered him and made him into the man that he became. So his early life was brought into focus with a bang because he brought the Macintosh into existence. His middle life was marginal success, a lot of unsuccesses, and a lot of failures. But through that failure, he emerged as a significant leader and he changed the world. Bravo, Steve.